Why don't we go ahead and start off with the reason why we're here today, right? I'll start off just kind of introducing myself, so everyone knows. So I'm David Isaac. I'm the Vice President of Strategy at Overwatch Mission Critical. I'm also the co-founder of DCAC. Shae, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Shae Presico. I'm the social media and communications coordinator for Overwatch and DCAC and Data Center Revolution, the podcast that we host here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Marlee, you want to make a quick introduction?
I'm Marlee Bacon. I'm the marketing coordinator for Overwatch. I'm also the coordinator for DCAC. I run our podcast, Data Center Revolution, and then I help out with our apparel brand, Data Center Savage, as well.
Say, hey, Marlee, touching on that, is there anything else you want to add? Why don't you go ahead and add on to, why you think we're here today, along with your background?
It's like we all came from different paths. We all had an idea in mind on what we thought we were going to do in life, or maybe we didn't. I mean, I know you wanted to wear suits and ties your whole life, and now, you like to walk up in a t-shirt, and it's like, that's the whole idea, is you have this idea in mind, but you don't know what's out there until you hear about it for the first time. And we all have our own stories on how we got here and how we heard about the industry, but that's the point. It's like we all come from somewhere.
No, definitely. I definitely think that, the one thing that I would say to anybody out there that wants to step in this industry, all you need is grit. You just got to be willing to work hard, be able to step in, have that forward thing and just get into this industry, start somewhere. But before we get into your background, Shae, you want to tie into anything on why you think we're here today?
Yeah, I think the data center industry is just a unique complex in itself. I've only been in it about a year now, but I've learned so much every single day that I've been here. It's ever changing as well with everything that we're facing from AI and all the other stuff. But regardless of the tech aspect of it, we're in an industry that's essential to everything else that our society is functioning off of. It's interesting coming from different backgrounds, which we'll all touch on eventually, but how eventually it all came together to tie together in this one industry that's the foundation of everything else. It doesn't matter what your major was. It doesn't matter what you focused on in high school and what your passions were. At the end of the day, we all are together for something greater than ourselves. And it's just awesome to come together and now be able to educate other audiences about it as well. So yeah. I'm excited to be here today and see what comes of this.
Yeah, that was a great point.
No, I'm super excited, right? I mean, you guys, we'll talk about this in a little while, but you guys know my background and how I ended up here. But I'd love to hear, I have the audience here, how you ended up where you're at today, kind of talk about your position and what you've learned over the course of the year, what you think about the industry.
Mm-hmm. I enlisted as a aviation boatswain's mate, which is, if you've seen Top Gun, the yellow shirts that are shooting the birds off the flight deck. It was really fun. I did 5 years of that from 2017 to 2022. Really enjoyed it. Met a lot of great people. So yeah, I did that, and then I got an opportunity to come to this industry. Joe Pinzon, our chief revenue officer, I was close with him, and he was finishing his career at Konica Minolta, and was like, hey, I'm going to go over to this startup and see what's going on. If it's a good time, I'll give you a call. And sure enough, he called me a month later, and he was like, hey, this is great. So I think you should get in where you fit in. And I did just that. And so that would be my message for this podcast, is get in where you fit in this industry. Like, there's so much for you to do regardless of where you're at. Just take a leap, because we need you. There's a spot for you, and it's never going to go away.
What were you doing before you came to Overwatch?
I was transitioning out of the military. I did SkillBridge at the CIO group. I was their SkillBridge coordinator. So I got in there being working in operations, and then I got hired on after my SkillBridge internship as a SkillBridge coordinator, where I was actually conducting the interviews for people that wanted to work at that company through SkillBridge.
Real quick though, for those that don't know what SkillBridge is, can you explain a little bit, like a better understanding of what that means, what that looks like?
Yeah. So SkillBridge is basically, it could be from 90 days to 120 days of an internship with a company that's DoD approved. So when you're coming out of the military, any branch, if you get approved by your command, you can go work for this company, and basically have that time to transition into a new role, into a new company, learn new skills. It just gives you a good transition period versus one day you get your DD-214 and you're just a civilian. And myself, personally, I thought I was going to have no problem transitioning. I was like, oh, I've only been in 5 years. I'm 22 years old. This is going to be easy. No big deal. And you get out and you're like, wow, I was on an aircraft carrier. So I'm around 5,000 people a day, and you get out and then suddenly I'm working from home. And I'm like, wow, I don't have the same camaraderie. I don't have the same group of people that I'm used to working with. I don't have the same activity I'm used to every day. So it was a completely different transition. So I can only imagine being in 20 years, but SkillBridge, the main point is it gives you that period to transition and the guidance in that new role of like, hey, you're a civilian now. It gives you that grace period to transition appropriately.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that in a little while and talk about what that looks like, right? I mean, being able to do the transition from, someone young that was in college and from one day to the next decided, hey, I want to go into the military. I mean, that's something that it's a big change, right? I mean, I love to hear that story of how that transition was going into the military and getting out of the military. Like that must have been very challenging, right?
Mhm.
I can't imagine what it's like. But why don't we, Shae, why don't we get into your story? How did you end up here today?
Yeah, I guess I can start from the top, kind of like Marlee did. I think it's always interesting to consider that Marlee and I are the same age, same graduating class and everything, but came from completely different backgrounds, which has always fascinated me since day one. So I took more of the traditional route. I'm from Chicago, Chicagoland, born and raised, but I went to the University of Missouri and graduated in 2020 with a communications degree. Kind of like in the peak of COVID, actually in the peak of COVID, I didn't get to walk at graduation or anything. So after college, it was kind of just a time of like, okay, now I guess the next thing I do is go into corporate America, I guess. Like, I don't really know
Didn't we all
what
want to
that
do
means.
it? Yeah.
They tell you that that's what you're supposed to do. And so you're like, okay, like that sounds good. And then you get on LinkedIn and there's 100 jobs that all have the same description, but are kind of vague in certain things. And you're like, I guess I'll apply to 50 a day and don't hear back. But I digress. Anyways, I ended up at a sales job right out of college, pretty much 3 or 4 months after I graduated. I took some time off, obviously, last summer while you're free before corporate America takes over your whole life. But my first sales job, it was a corporate job. I was a sales broker in logistics. It was a private company, a third-party logistics brokerage. I'm not going to name drop anybody or anything, but I was in one of those entry-level jobs where it's super high turnover. You're seeing people get hired and fired basically every week. Was making 100 cold calls a day, literally on the phone, just in an open desk concept with hundreds of people in this office. Just you're very vulnerable and you're very just on the line, whether you're reading from a script or whatever, but it was a very cutthroat industry to get right into out of college. And I was like, okay, sales, this is an interesting industry and I can see the drive behind it, but having your worth being dependent week by week if you hit your metrics or not was kind of daunting for me. And I realized that even on the weeks that I felt like I would do good work, if I didn't have the numbers on the board, then I would be looked at as a different way. And I was like, I don't really like working for something where I'm based on a number. And so I decided to transition to a bigger corporate job where I was with a national grocer and I was a buyer for them for a while. And I was a buyer of condiments. So I was doing a lot of in-office work, but I was also doing a lot of contracts with major suppliers like Kraft and Red Gold. And don't want to name drop too many people, but had my nose in spreadsheets basically all day, every day. And at that point, I was working remote and partially hybrid. So I could go days or weeks without talking to anybody. But as long as I was doing my things and checking my things off the list, that's all they really cared about. It wasn't like a good job, no pat on the back at the end of the day. It was like, okay, you did what you were supposed to do. And that was it. And so I really felt like for a while, I was just kind of like a number in a corporate system. And I had gone from one corporate to another thinking that when I changed directions and changed titles, that it would get better. But it ended up kind of being the same thing, if anything, on a bigger scale. And I was like, okay, I know I'm not happy. I had never felt such stress and anxiety for a corporate job before, a job in general, even school. I mean, I went through a 4-year university. I went through a good high school in Naperville, Illinois. I had been put to the test for academics and things like that. In a work-related setting, to have such minor things have such a deeper impact on your day-to-day and how you carry yourself. Okay, say you miss one deadline, but then the rest of the week you're felt like you're not good enough because you didn't meet this one corporate thing, but then you take a step back and you look in the greater scheme of things, and there would be a time I could look back on both of those companies that I would never be within the same room, let alone office building, as the CEO or the C-suite, where now I'm in an industry where I'm able to collaborate with people that actually listen to my ideas and listen to what I have to say. So I found myself really unhappy in that corporate job, my second corporate job. I was there for over a year because I had a decent salary. I had my things day to day that I was doing and checking my things off the list, but I wasn't happy and there was no opportunity for growth. They were like, yeah, this is it. This is what you'll do. And I saw people that were happy with that. And it's kind of hard when you do see in those corporate settings people that are content with sitting at that desk and doing that day to day. And they're fine with drinking their same coffee every day and having their same salad for lunch every day and going home and sitting in that hour of traffic every day. And I was like, I'm going to lose my mind. I can't do this. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I couldn't sit there anymore. So I kind of, not to say that I quit with my tail between my legs, but I did not have anything set up for me in the afterwards of that, I guess. I went in, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm putting in my 2 weeks. My director was like, okay, your last day's tomorrow. Thank you very much. So I didn't even have a 2 weeks. I didn't get to say goodbye to my team that I really barely talked to. So it wasn't, yeah. Anyways.
It's just a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Like coming from, it doesn't matter if you're coming from college or military or trades or whatever. It's a hard lesson to learn that business is cutthroat.
It's so cutthroat.
It's a really tight-knit group, which is like something I've come to learn. Like, it's still business and it's still ever changing. But then this data center industry is a little bit different in that we do care about each other and like we all want each other to stay in the same realm versus like, oh, I don't want you to leave and go somewhere outside the industry where I'm not going to see you again. It's like, oh, I'll see you maybe at a different company, but you'll still be here. And that's like, yeah, it's like recycling instead of like just getting rid of. It's like we see the value in you.
Well, what I find super interesting is both of you guys started in the same career path where you guys both decided, hey, I want to go to college. You ended up deciding to go into the military. You ended up deciding finishing college, right? And thinking about college now, right? We're in an industry that a degree would not be able to translate to what we're doing today, which is pretty crazy, to think about. Like, hey, we go to college with the preparation of, I'm gonna go to college. Like, I guess let me take a step back. Why do you think you went to college?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I had always, I guess, grew up thinking like, yeah, that was like, you go to high school.
Part of the checkbox. Yeah.
Elementary, middle, high school, college. And then I guess what comes after that. But like, as far as when I was growing up, like I just always pictured it like I'll just go to my shiny dorm room and make friends and do all these things for me, join a dance team. Like I had those things, but in a bigger scheme of things that I think about getting my degree and my major and getting a job because of that, like, no, not really. By the time I was picking out schools, it was like, okay, I like this mascot and I like this campus and how it makes me feel, but wasn't thinking about a job after college. So it's just interesting. And then I did switch majors. I went into the University of Missouri with a journalism intended major. And I went starting in 2016. And I was like, actually, I don't want to be in journalism at this time right now. I'm not really interested in this. So transition to communications. But that just goes to show that we're so young when we go into college and they tell us to make these decisions that are you're supposed to base the rest of your life on. You're supposed to pick this major that your future career for however many years you'll have until you retire is going to be based on. And you decide that when you're like 16, 17 years old.
It's crazy. I mean, so I think there's a statistic out there that says over 70% of students don't actually use a degree for what they're doing today. Like it's crazy, right? And you had a path. I mean, you're within the realm of what you studied, right? You stated in that, Marlee, you completely changed career paths. Like, how do you think that impacted you today? Like with the skill set that you learned from the military, that what you're doing today?
Yeah, getting into this job, I'm a marketing coordinator. So I was like very transparent getting this job. Like, hey, I don't know a ton about marketing besides what I've picked up from other companies, but like I definitely don't have a degree in it and I've never studied it, but I'm more than willing to learn. And I think that's basically what you said at the beginning is like, all you have to do is have grit. And so I was like very transparent, like I can learn it and I will learn it. But I want to be honest that I'm not going to come into this knowing everything. And I just picked up pieces as I went along. I'm going to have great leaders. You're an awesome boss. And then we had Joe as our CSO, and he's a great leader as well. So I think, honestly, the room to grow and the trust that I would learn as I went along really helped guide me. But I was honestly just given the opportunity to learn and the trust to grow, and that helped me a lot. So
yeah. How important? I mean, to me, like that is one of the most important things, right? Like having the opportunity to do something that I know I'm capable of. I may not have all the skill sets. I may not be the most experienced in that position, but to me, I've always believed, give me an opportunity, and I'm going to prove you wrong, right? Like that's the way I've been. I mean, Shae, like you came in this industry, you had said like too, like hey, you transitioned from what you were doing at the other group to here today,
Yeah,
right? Like. I mean,
completely.
was that a big change? You know, being able to study something, go into a job that was completely different from what you studied to go back into what you're passionate about?
It was an interesting transition. It was almost like coming back home to like what you finally know. And you're like, okay, I remember why I was doing this all together. So I majored in communications and did a lot of like media relations and things like that in high school and college. But then, like I said, out of college, I did sales and then was just in like corporate and grocery, basically like that. So coming to the data center industry, but not that alone, marketing in general, I'm the social media coordinator for Overwatch and DCAC and even the podcast that we do. And Marlee's the coordinator. She didn't give yourself any credit for that. But
why don't we take a step back? Like we were talking about the transition between college to the military, you know, college to a job that had nothing to do with what you studied, back to something you like passionate about. One of the things I'd like to talk about, like our industry is so niche, right? And I've tried to explain what we do to my friends, to my family. And the simplest way I could say is, you know, usually I ask them like, hey, do you know what the cloud is? Like, oh yeah, I know what the cloud is. You know what a data center is? No, I don't know what a data center is. I'm like, it's the physical building that allows the cloud to run on a day-to-day basis, right? So I'd almost love to hear y'all's thoughts on how you guys explain to your friends what you do or like the industry you work in.
yeah. When I was introduced to the data center industry, I remember having a conversation with Joe Pinzon, and he was like, okay, the call that we're having right now, we couldn't be having this call without the data centers that we help build and run. And I was like, okay. Then he kind of branched off of that. He was like, have you gone to the grocery store recently? And I was like, well, yeah, the other day. Okay, well, when you were checking out, them processing your payment through the cloud was through the data centers that we run. Okay, have you traveled anytime recently? Yeah. Okay, well, when they were doing the air traffic control, they were communicating through the data centers that we help build and construct. So when I was introduced about a year ago, that's how Joe put it out on the table for me. And I was like, oh, whoa, this is a lot bigger than I ever realized. So he was like, so imagine if that all went down one day, what would we do? There would be no planes flying. There would be no cars driving because you couldn't connect to your GPS, things like that. Everything is ran through the data centers. So I think it's just interesting that it's so essential, but people don't realize how essential it is.
I have a question for you, but I'm going to wait to hear Marlee kind of explain. How do you explain to your friends what the data center industry is?
Honestly, Shae hit the nail on the head. And I just explain it to him as it's everything you touch every day that you have no idea about. Every piece of technology that you touch and use use storage on your laptop, your phone. But yeah, it's essential to everyday life. So it's like if we didn't have data centers that you don't even know about, everything that you do know about would cease to exist.
Could you imagine that? Like, so that's one of the craziest things I could think of, like that a younger generation, they grew up with technology in their hands every day. Could you imagine if we wiped out all phones for just a week? No phones, no internet. Like, what would that look like? Like that, I mean, it's day to day. We need it to be able to communicate. We need it for emails. We need it for our video calls. Like, could you imagine, like, you know, LinkedIn, our posts? I mean, what we do in the marketing side, we need it necessarily every day. Could you imagine a week without that? Like, what would that look like? You know, I'm almost thinking, does the younger generation know what that would look like?
No. I mean, we had no idea before the technology was around. Like, I think, because I feel like growing up, we did have a lot of technology, like at least starting, like, I don't know, I got my first phone in like 6th grade, which was probably too early, but like, I don't know.
Was it
I remember
flip phones, or did you guys already
it
have
was
the
like
iPhones?
a little slide, like pay as you go phone. But
All right.
I remember growing up and not having like phones to play on. But then I remember being in middle school and having like computers, and we would be watching YouTube videos and things like that. And it was so shiny and new. So it's like you don't know what you have until you have it. So for them to have it taken away, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do my job. I work remote and I do social media and communications, which is all through my phone and my computer and everything. So I couldn't do my job. I couldn't imagine what the rest of the world would do.
It's crazy. What about you, Molly? Like, what would a week without your phone, internet, look like?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be tough, as it would be for everyone. And I think that's like the main point of getting this younger generation to pay attention to the industry, because we're the main consumers of the energy and the power that goes into the industry, and they don't even know that it's here and that they need to pay attention to it. I don't want to imagine it, and I hope that we don't have to.
Better question. Could you imagine a month without Amazon?
No.
Like being able to order.
No.
I could do it, but I don't want to. I definitely don't want to.
Yeah, like think about so it's made it convenient. Like the internet or the Internet of Things has made it convenient for us to be able to just get on our phones, order something, never have to interact with a person, and just be able to get things delivered to your home, delivered to wherever you live, right? Just in the snap of a minute. To me, it's super. I don't know. It's crazy to think about. Like, what if that was taken away? You have to go to the store every day, right? Like the inconvenience of it.
Cash. Who carries cash anymore?
Yeah. Well, better question, right? A data center.
I feel rich when I have cash.
Your banks rely on data centers to be able to run every day. If all the data centers in the world were shut down today, and your bank, you no longer had $1 in your bank, or you technically would no longer, what you have in your bank account would no longer it would cease to exist. Yeah. Imagine that. How do you pay? How do you go to the store? How do you acquire the things that you acquire every day?
Or better yet, what's your value?
Yeah.
If you run around with your title and your billionaire status or your millionaire status, it's like, what are you?
Yeah.
Do you care that much about it to get involved?
Yeah. Well, and so that's the younger generation. Like, I think that's important for them to understand, right? To me, it's something that I didn't fully understand, right?
David, what's your story? How did you get here?
Yeah. So the way I got here was one of my best friends at college, John Hicks. He was working for Kirk O'Fell, who's our CEO of Overwatch at the time. And we were in college. I think I was a sophomore in college. And this is the first year that DCAC ever existed. Again, just a napkin idea that Kirk had. And, John had told me that he's like, hey, I'm working for this gentleman, working in this industry that's ever evolving. And I was like, hey, man, that sounds like a super fun industry. Like all I wanted to do in college was be able to make $1, right? I just wanted to be able to make enough money to be able to pay my bills, to be able to graduate, to be able to, again, have a good job. I always envisioned myself working a corporate job, suit and tie, working my way up. That was always my dream. Now I can never imagine myself in a suit and tie every day. But
just a quarter zip.
Yeah, just short
sleeve quarter zip.
and that was the dream. Like that was all I ever wanted to do. I just wanted to be able to have just a good paying job, wear a suit and tie every day, work my way up the corporate ladder. And I'm so glad that, things fell into the way they fell into, but it was truly by who I know. I was like, hey man, if there's ever any opportunity for me to be able to help you, let me know. Sure enough, that first year, he's like, hey, actually, we need some hands. We need some people to be able to help out the day of the event. We'll not only pay you, but you can drink all you want. I'm like,
yeah,
sign me up.
Yeah, there you
drink
go.
all I want, college, and I get paid? Yeah. No way.
I'm there.
Yeah, craziest thing. So I'm helping out a registration, being able to meet people in the industry. For those that listening, those that attended the first year of DCAC, I was that one person you got to check in with, which is the craziest thing to think now. Like how I ended up.
9 years later,
that can make me cry. They can bring a tear.
Next year will be the 10th.
But so I just helped out, and I remember meeting Kirk, and I didn't know who he was. I didn't know how the type of leader that he was. I just remember meeting this gentleman that they came up to me and asked me, hey, how are you guys doing? He genuinely cared about how I was, I was having a good time. And he's like, hey, he made sure to say, hey, dude, as long as you're 21, you can go grab a beer at the bar. He did mention that part of it. I remember that part clearly. And I was like, man, this guy genuinely cares. And, it was one of those touching moments where I was like, man, this guy approached me in a different way that I've never been approached. He genuinely cared about how I was doing, if I wanted to learn more. I was asking him questions, and he took the time out of his schedule. Again, at the time, super important guy, busy with the conference. Could have been, hey man, I'll talk to you later, or hit me up later. No, he stopped what he was doing, given that him and John were running the conference at the time, and just took the time, I think it was 30, 40 minutes of his time that I took up, and disregarded phone calls, disregarded meetings. He was just like, hey, just answering every question I asked him. So that was kind of my introduction to the industry. And I'm like, man, like if people are like this in this industry, I want to be a part of it. I don't know what I'm signing up for, but sign me up. And so that kind of took off right after DCAC the first year. I got to meet Kirk and John, and they asked me like, hey, we need some help with operations, business development. And without hesitation, I was like, okay. So I remember talking with Kirk. So they told me like, hey, go ahead and meet us at it was a Marty's out in Bee Cave. He's like, hey, go ahead and meet us out at Marty's. Like we'll have a conversation, be able to do an interview, right? And I remember the funniest thing. I was just out there. I go to meet Kirk and John, and I'm there laughing. And I remember Kirk asking me, he's like, hey, what experience do you have in the data center? Or one, he asked me, what experience do you have in events? I was like, I threw parties in college. I threw parties in high school and then college, but I didn't drink in college. I was like, I just want to pay rent, and I remember connecting with Kirk on a personal level. He's like, oh yeah, so did I. He's like, yep, you sound like the right guy.
There you go.
So the rest is history, right?
It's a
But
great story.
so we started talking
But
about.
you rose to the occasion.
Yeah. So he was like, hey man, I was like, look, dude, I don't know anything about that. I go, hey man, all I know is he's like, he starts telling me about what they're doing, about what the industry is, where the industry was growing at the time, thinking about how he already had saw the industry growing to where it is today. It's mind blowing, right? And just that little snippet alone was enough to be able to intrigue me. Like, okay, cool. Like I see it now. I went back, kind of looked into it just a little bit, and I was like, question, does it pay pretty well? He's like, yeah, if you get into the industry, it does. I'm like, sounds like
Yeah. That's the whole point. I mean, that's literally the whole point of this conversation is it doesn't matter if you're throwing parties in college. You have skills that can
transfer
to the industry. It's like you didn't think you'd be doing what you're doing, but DCAC is on its 9th year and booming with success. And it's like it doesn't matter where you are at in your life. You have skills that can transfer here, and we want you. And there's an industry that needs you. In fact,
you were so young at the time when you met Kirk, and you really didn't understand the industry, but you got a little glimpse of it. But most college kids would probably see that and be like, "That was really fun, but I'm going to go back to college and go back to what I was doing normally." You saw it, and you were like, "Okay, there's something here. I see potential here." And like Marlee said, we're on our 9th year of DCAC. So I'd love to hear more about your journey, like over these past 9 years, because I'm sure every year has been a little bit different. And now we have AI, and I know Kirk has covered that topic plenty of times for us. We don't have to dive too deep on that, but like you've seen so much change so far. And within the last year that we've been in it, it's changed completely. So I'd love to hear more from you on that.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy. I think the first year we had a little less than 200 people. Last year we had about 950 people, which is insane to be able to see it grow. But organically, right? Like the type of people in the industry, like Marlee, you touched on this a while ago. The people in the industry that we have today, I've never met anyone who did not want to help, right? If I asked a question, they were always willing to help. They were always willing to answer it. I've met, it's pretty amazing to be able to, be able to meet some of the most important people in our industry and them have the most genuine personalities and be able to answer any question or be like, hey, if you need anything, let me know. And when they say that, they truly mean it. It's not just, hey, if you need anything, let me know, right? And just disregard you. No, you hit them up, they're going to help you out, right? People, I think it's something that they teach in the military. It's a left seat, right seat, right? You always, someone always is teaching you to be able to fill their position. Vice versa, you always teach someone else to fill their position. It's that, and I think that's what makes it work, especially with, at Overwatch. It's a paramilitary culture for those that are in the military, those that are not in the military. I think that we've always had that instilled mindset where it's always to help one another, no matter what the cause is. Hey, we're all in this together. And that's the way the industry is, right? It's, you could be a competitor to who I am today, and yet we probably will have a conversation, a drink over it, and be able to talk about the trials and tribulations that you're seeing. But how do we, there's no secret sauce to it. I mean, everyone has their differences, but it's okay. Hey, we're in this together to make this industry, push it forward. Right. And that's the story behind DCAC. You asked, what's the history? 150 people to over 900 people. It's been a crazy experience. It's been some awesome people have been on stage, but more importantly, DCAC would not happen without the passion and without the type of leadership that we have in our industry, right? People care about one another. They're always trying to rise the next person to the occasion. We're in a new industry, which is, we could tie back to 25 years old, right? 25 years old. right? I mean, that's right around the ages that you guys are.
Yeah, literally are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
26, unfortunately.
25 and 11 months.
And we're in what they call the fifth industrial revolution, which is crazy, right? I mean, thinking about the first industrial revolution with electricity, with steamboats, with cars, to now data centers, right? Like what allows us to run. I mean, we need it. It's a commodity. If it goes away, it changes our lives every day.
Yeah.
I think it's so fascinating. But now we've talked about kind of like why we're here today, who we're focused on. We've talked about the data center industry on what it is. I'd like to be able to touch on the why. Why should people come into our industry today? What do y'all think? Shae, you want to go ahead and lead it off?
I mean, kind of like going back to how I described the industry, like when I realized how it was involved in everything day to day, it's like, okay, every other industry can kind of be indispensable depending on where you go, but at the end of it all, as long as we're still using smartphones and computers, we're still going to use data centers. So it's so stable and secure over here. But also, it's so ever changing. Like, I remember my first interview that I had with Overwatch. I wouldn't even consider it an interview. I've never had such a collaborative conversation called an interview. Like, Joe was willing to listen to what I had to say because I feel like everyone in this industry is all here to make a bigger impact and work together to educate everyone else about what we're doing in the industry. We're not competing against like other companies and trying to tear each other down. It's more like, how can we educate more people about what we're doing over here? And so I feel like that is just reason enough to join. Like, we're here for a reason. We're here sitting in these seats talking about how we ended up here from completely different ends of the country, let alone the world. Like, we've been all over, but now we're all here for one reason. And from what we can see, there's no end anywhere near. AI, data centers, everything. It's grown so much over the last year. So
the best word I can use is a word I heard from Dirk and Rob Cole at the Open Compute is co-opetition. Or co-opetition, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're gonna cooperate with each other and help each other along. But even though we are competitors, it's like ultimately we want what's best for the industry because it's not an industry issue. It's not a corporate issue. It's a societal issue. It's something we all use day to day, whether you know it or not.
So taking a step back, in terms of transferable skills, what would you say to someone that right now that's in college, that's studying what you studied, that has never heard of this industry? Is there skills that transfer into the data center industry?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I feel like no matter what your major is, whether it's marketing, come to the data center industry. Sales, okay, you could do that in the data center industry. Construction, even architecture. I mean, engineering, it all goes down to it. It doesn't matter what your major is. We've got that all covered in the data center industry. We're doing everything here. So whatever your interest is, we've got a place for you, whether it's entry level, mid, senior level. From all of us, we all have different experience levels, but we've all found a home here. And I can't see myself transitioning anywhere else because this industry is not going anywhere else,
Yeah. What about you, Marlee? So given that you went from college to the military to the data center industry, like what would you say to another person that's right now transferring outside the military or currently a veteran that's looking for a new career?
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for you, like Shae said, regardless of where you're at, of what you're studying. It's like, get in where you fit in, like all of us did. We all came from different backgrounds, but we're all here and we all found a purpose in this industry. So come find your purpose, come help us out. We need you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I ask the next question, I was just thinking about, do y'all remember like the phones and cars? Were you guys around when there was phones and cars? Or is that too old for you guys?
I've seen it on movies.
I've seen that. My whole family car had one. I don't know what year our Toyota Land Cruiser it was, but we had there was a phone in the middle, and I remember being like, why is there a phone in here? But it was never used. I never was allowed to touch it.
That's Chicago stuff, because my dad drove a Chevy Dually, and he definitely never had a phone in his car.
Maybe it was just a really old car.
One of the coolest stories I heard the other day was one of our partners out of Europe, Cathal from Moy Materials. Shout out to him. He's one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. He was telling about his kid, and he goes, his kid is, I think, 8 years old, and he was telling me how his kid was looking at the TV monitor, and his kid was trying to swipe the TV monitor, and it was the craziest thing because it was just a generation of children that are the future, they're growing up with technology so much so, like the iPad in their hands, that everything to them is advanced, right? To me, it's I still remember my grandmother having a TV where you gotta pull the little plug out, turn the knob to be able to change the channel. Like I remember having to have the antenna holding it up. I don't know if you guys experienced that. I know I'm only a couple years old, but it's kind of, it's one of those things. Like it was the craziest thing to now think that, hey, let me just connect the Wi-Fi. Boom. I have Netflix, I have, everything I need in my hands in one handheld device. Like, it is the wildest thing.
It is crazy. It changes so fast too. Like even over the last year, before I started this job, I had no idea about, and I don't mean to talk about AI again, but I just feel like it's a good landmark of showing how quickly things are progressing. Now I can't imagine a day not even just going into Chat GPT and being like, does this make sense? And then plugging in whatever I said, because sometimes you'll just, I don't know, it's just there to help you. And I feel like things like that, they're there to enhance your daily life, just like the things that we grew up with. But
Yeah.
you look back and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Like I would never have pictured what we have today, but now I can't picture my life without it.
It's insane. Like, talking about the why, like, going back to the why of why we're here, right? Like, one of the craziest things is we're in an industry that is the tip of the spear, right? Every industry that's out there influences our industry. And they cannot continue to grow without our industry, right? We are a byproduct of of those other industries. So in conjunction, we need them. But, that's crazy to think of. We're almost in a industry, what I've heard is called recession proof, right? Once you come to this industry, there's, technology is not going to slow down. We're not going to stop making technology. Technology is only going to continue to grow. AI has changed the trajectory of technology, right? What do you guys think about that? Like, what would you tell someone that, tying back into the recession proof industry? Do you guys think that's accurate? Do you guys, what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're already in a labor shortage. It's an ever-growing industry, like Shae said. We need more people already, and the founders of the industry are currently about to retire. So it's like we have roles to fill, and that goes back to, it doesn't matter what you're doing, where you're at, please come, because we need you. Like, we honestly need people to fill roles. We need people to care. We need people to help solve the solution of the energy and power crisis that we're facing, because the overconsumption and the constant evolution of our industry, it's like, it's simply put, like Shae said, ever changing. So we need new minds. We need younger generations who haven't functioned without this type of technology before, and they definitely don't want to. Nobody wants to, because it will affect life as we know it. And so it's a big deal.
And I do think there was an article that was written last year that in the next 5 years, well, now 4 years, that we need 250,000 jobs to be able to fill this industry for the demand that we need in the next 5 years, right? That's crazy to think about, right? One of the things that we do at Overwatch is we tap into the military community, right? We're trying to tap into the youth community with DCAC. We're trying to tap into any industry, and every opportunity that we can to be able to bring more people into the industry. That's kind of the reason why we created DC Savage, which is a clothing brand in the industry, to be able to get people just asking the question, what is a data center? Right? On your shirt, we can do it.
Rosie the Rabbit.
Scan our QR code.
Right? People look at that and they may ask, oh, what is that shirt? What does it mean?
Yeah.
Right. It's starting the conversation as early as middle school, high school. Like, we got to get people interested in this industry, and there's no perfect answer. There's no, what we do know, excuse me. What we do know is that there's this silver tsunami, right? People are retiring right now, and we need the next generation to be able to come and fulfill those roles that are required to be able to keep advancing this industry forward. Right. That's one of the big things. I've brought a couple friends into this industry. I'm pushing more and more people that I know, but it's being able to tell them, hey guys, like, this is an industry that's not going anywhere. Like, this is an industry that, is only going to continue to grow. We're 25 years old, right? Imagine what it's going to be. Could you imagine, right? From the first time that you've come here, you guys, Shae, you celebrated your 1 year anniversary. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yes.
Marlee. Yeah. Marlee, how long ago was your 1 year?
February for me. Yeah.
February. How much has it changed since the first day you guys came into the industry?
Whoa, I don't even know where to start with that one.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's just within our company and the growth that we've seen, or like the technological advancements.
How much you've learned, how much you've heard, the things that have been introduced. Like, talk about like maybe one experience that you've had, like, of one thing that's been introduced since you started this industry. You're like, man, like, that was not around.
Oh gosh. Well, the first thing that actually came to my mind when I was like introduced to this industry, and one thing that surprised me, other than DCAC, of course, and how fun that was, but a few months ago, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're bringing this up. So let me start over. But a few months ago, we were doing like a once a month book club with Carrie Getz, and she has a whole book written about what's the title of the book?
Jumpstart your career in data centers.
So we were doing a once-a-month meeting with Carrie Getz about her book called Jumpstart Your Career in Data Centers. And I remember when I started at this job, I was given that book
Great
as
book, by
like
the
a
way.
little
Yeah,
bit
I
of
read it.
guidance. And it's amazing. And I remember being like, there's a whole book about how to get
Started?
started in this industry. Like, and I just was so surprised, like, how did I not know about all of this? And then I thought to myself, and just even over this conversation, ultimately, it's like we all love the cloud and we all love the cloud and we all love the efficiencies that our current technology gives us. But like, who do we think is running all of that behind the scenes? Who do you think is powering the speed of your iPhone and all those things like that? It's like the data centers. And the reason why Carrie had a whole book written on it, it's so essential. It's like we have to educate and we have to do things like that and spread the word about it. And that is just like, anyways, Carrie's book was just something that sparked an interest of me that was like, whoa, this is bigger than I realized it was.
Yeah.
And it made me realize the question of who did I think that was running this stuff behind the scenes? But, oh, it's the data centers and the things that we work to build in our career and everything like that. So
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the main point of that is I never thought about who was behind the scenes. I never cared. I was like, I have everything I need. I'm going as I please, and I never even crossed my mind who is running or what if it stops or even can it stop. I was like, it's infinite. Until I got in the industry and I was like, wow, we're running it. We're doing everything. The whole industry is what powers our iPhones, our laptops, every corporate America and everything. It's like, what if this goes away? And it takes people behind it to drive the industry forward. And we continuously need more to drive the industry.
But isn't that crazy to think about? Like, when I was graduating, all I cared about was and maybe this is just me, right? I don't know if you guys agree, but all I ever thought about was being able to make $1, right? I just wanted to graduate college and have a good job. That's all I cared about. I never thought about the industry I'm going to end up in, how long I'll be there, right? Like, you're not taught that in college. You're not taught that in high school. You're not taught about thinking about, hey, this, you go into X industry and maybe around 20 years, maybe 10 years, you're not taught about that. I mean, I studied 2 majors and I have nothing to do with any of my majors, right? I'm in a completely separate industry. To think that we're in an industry again that's recession proof, that technology is not going anywhere, it's only going to advance. Imagine what it'd be like. I was looking at this article the other day. I think I've showed it to y'all. The group that believes that there'll be robots in every household doing everyday chores for you. Imagine that. Like,
scary.
Imagine that power.
No, that's so scary.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like, that's
Yeah.
the problem, though, with people not understanding. There's an industry behind their iPhone, behind their robots, behind their computer. It's like, hey, everybody's got to get on board. Everybody's got to come in and help. If I want robots in my house, I would love somebody to do the laundry. You know what I'm saying? So I would love to get there, but we need way more people to pay attention to this industry, and that's what we're here to do. It's like, just come on.
Well, and not only that, I mean, one of the things I'm super excited on part 2 of this podcast is to be able to bring one of our interns on, to be able to talk about what they're experiencing in college right now, what a data center means to them, what the industry means to them, right? I mean, it's mind blowing again. Like, it's changed so much in terms of like when I joined to where it is today to where it's going. You're not gonna. I mean, if you're one of the best phrases I've heard is, if you're planning for today, you're already behind. If you're planning for tomorrow, 5 years from now, that's where you should be, right? It's because it's ever evolving. The industry is ever evolving, and we need the younger generation who, again, you mentioned this earlier, grew up with technology in their hands. They're going to find ways to make technology more efficient than how we ever saw it, right? We need them to be able to come into this industry. This industry, again, like one of the biggest struggles, and the two of you are probably aware of this, is power, right? Like, how are we going to be able to solve for that? I know one of the things that they talked about is nuclear. We need the big brains, the big engineers right now to be able to think about how we adopt nuclear, right? Nuclear is 10 years away from ever being adopted. I mean, at least that's what they say, maybe adopted in 5 years from now. But it's, I think it's crazy to think about how it is, and where it's going to go. What's y'all's thoughts on that? Like, do y'all think that?
Oh, that's a tough one because we are the marketing sector of our company. So it's hard to touch on things about like the future of where the energy supply is going to come from and things like that. But I do know that we are definitely informed about how much energy is used and like how the demand of energy is way higher than the amount of power that we can supply. And so I know that there's a big thing right now about what we're going to do next as far as nuclear, what's to come. But it's kind of daunting because we're getting so used to using this stuff every single day, but we're also reaching a point where we're like, okay, you got to slow down a little bit because we can't really support the demand that we're seeing. And so that's why our industry is booming because of this demand. But at the same time, it's kind of scary because we are getting so used and so complacent to what we have that I don't know. So it kind of goes both ways, but
yeah. And then I would also tie it back to like nuclear. It's this big bad thing that people kind of like are hush hush about or don't want to talk about. It's like in the military, I mean, Kirk was on a submarine that was nuclear powered. I was on an aircraft carrier that was nuclear powered, and it does everything for us. And I'm off of it with minimal. I don't have any issues, like nothing blew up, nothing crazy happened.
No horns growing right now.
No horns. Thank God. I'm across my fingers. But it's like something we need to definitely look into and pay attention to. And nuclear energy is not this big bad thing. If we kind of like break down those stigmas of it being scary, it's like we've used it for a very long time now for our most mission critical in our most mission critical environments, and it's like, why not this one that is literally the mission critical industry?
Well, tying it all together, like one of the coolest things to think about is that we're an industry that's recession proof, right? It's not going anywhere. It's a good paying industry. It has good leaders. We talked about that, right? That the industry doesn't have people that, it has a lot of people who are genuine about being able to teach you, grow you, and being able to extend a hand, right? It's also a fun industry, right? We're in the tech space. A lot of people, when they think about the tech space, they think about the Facebook, Googles, the world, right? Every big industry company. I mean, my personal background, I almost went to go work for one of those groups, right? And it was the idea that you have those tech jobs, but this is a different sector in the tech industry that you can come into and still have that same experience, still have a great time. And companies want that younger generation to join it. I mean, you guys have experienced it. Some of the events we've attended are some of the most fun events in the industry.
The first event I threw was our beer pong tournament last year during Data Center World in Austin. And that's one of the prime examples of like, you're not in marketing. I just trust you. Just go do it. You know how to have a good time. And it's like, goes back to you just being like, I threw parties in college. It's like, I trust you to handle the job. And like, it obviously more goes into that and like dealing with sponsors, and there's business development and finance and all these things that tie in. But it's like, ultimately you have the skills. We can just give you a purpose.
But how much of that is important for like the leadership aspect, right? I mean, because that's a big aspect. I mean, Shae, you talked about this too, right? You went to a job where you had specific measurements on what success looked like. Mm-hmm. Marlee, in the military, right? You're measuring your time on, death. How many people die on your watch, right? In the industry, we measure our success on downtime. How much downtime do we have in a data center? Right? How much of this industry is reliant on leadership, in terms of your growth, in terms of what we're doing day to day, talk about the leadership aspect. I'd love to hear both of y'all's thoughts. Shae, you want to?
Oh, I liked, when I think about the leadership in this industry and from what I've seen over the past year, I just remember joining, and I remember DCAC being my first big event, which for that being my first industry event is like crazy. I remember just being so amazed, like, oh my gosh, this is just insane. But
probably not the best introduction to the industry.
No, it was perfect. I loved every minute of it. Being the social media person running around like a chicken with my head cut off was so much fun. But anyways, seeing the level of collaboration, I think, was something that proves the type of leadership that's in this industry, because we have these speakers on stage that are from the most well-known tech companies in the world that are coming to speak at our conference, but then are coming off stage and collaborating with all these like-minded individuals, whether they're new to the industry or whatnot. But even that alone at DCAC to see that collaboration. Then from there, from the year I've seen and all the awesome guests that we've had on the Revolution podcast with Kirk, like how willing everyone is to collaborate and work together, especially these leaders, especially these people that everyone looks up to, these industry luminaries. They're willing to work with the underdogs of the industry and be like, yeah, we're in this together. Let's do it. So I think the leadership in this industry is unique to anything I've seen before because they have the we're all in this together mindset. And I definitely appreciate that.
To touch on that, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, but I would say like the leadership here is immeasurable because they're literally the pioneers of the industry. So they don't have any choice but to lead, to pass it on to the next group because they've started it, they've founded it, they've got it to where it needs to go, but they're tired, you know what I mean? Like they're ready to go. So they have to teach this next generation how to take over this industry and how to build it. And it's up to us to solve the problems of the industry. And yeah, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. It's like the everyone is so willing to help, to give their information, to lend their mind and their ears and everything, just to give you the foundational blocks of how this industry works and how to string this industry along to not only take over, but to make it better and more sustainable as well.
Well, one of the things you touched on earlier, circling back to the military experience, how that transfers into the data center industry. You talked about purpose. You talked about, hey, this industry, you could join it to be able to have a purpose outside the military. Can you expand on that a little more?
So I would say in the military, you judge your success on mortality, and in the industry, you judge your success on downtime. And it's like here we all have one purpose, is to not have that downtime and to keep things going. And because we are a mission critical industry and we power all these different things that, like we said, you don't know about, but you touch every single day. And so, yeah, personally, it's given me a purpose to let people know about this industry, to help solve this labor shortage and this gap, because people, like I said, every day are using this technology. They have no idea where it comes from and they just expect it to always be there. But what happens if it's not always there?
Yeah.
We need new minds. We need new ideas. We need new solutions to come in here and really shake things up and be disruptive. And that's pretty much what we're all about.
I'm excited to talk to our intern to be able to hear his thoughts on how, again, talking about mortality, right? Like one of the big things in our industry is downtime, right? But downtime to a lot of companies means one of two things, right? It's everyone being able to go home at the end of the day safely, right? More importantly than anything, right? You're on a project that has a high demand of power, right? Where if you make one mistake, you could be hurt. So it is that's why it's called mission critical. But the other alternative to that impact could be that a company shuts down for seconds, minutes, hours, which could be not a matter of hundreds of dollars, but hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? To think about. If I think there was a study that came out that if a company went down for 1 minute, the average is over $100,000 per minute, right? To think about, right? So to be able to communicate to the younger generation how much of a mission critical industry we're in, right? Is the fact that you're in such an important industry that your everyday companies, every app, every company that you communicate, or every company that you engage with on a day-to-day basis relies on a data center. And if that data center goes down, there is an effect, whether it's on a personal level, on a financial level, right? So it needs people to come and be able to make sure that it's running on a day-to-day basis. That's how critical it is. Like that's to me that means a lot. Like that, something that hits home.
Yeah. Exactly. Either join us now or wish you did later.
But to wrap this all up, right? I think we talked about all the different aspects of, why the younger generation should be able, why they should consider this industry, the importance of it, the type of experience that you need to have. One of the big things I'd ask now, given y'all's experience, one being military, one being the college career, if you can go back to your 18, 21-year-old you, what would you tell yourself, about this industry?
I would say be willing to be flexible and be willing to learn about new things, and be willing to be able to accommodate as things are changing so quickly. I was in a job where everything was the same thing all day, every day for over a year.
Yeah.
And now every day it's something new. So I would say you can try to prepare yourself all you want in college with your major and all your classes and your exams, but just be prepared to be flexible and have the pressure put on, but it's all worth it. And yeah, it's just so cool to see this industry that's ever changing. Just prepare yourself. It's a lot of fun.
Would you have told younger you to be able to join the industry right there and then? Or would you have said, hey, go ahead,
That poses a good question because was the industry where it is now in 2020? We didn't have as much AI advancements as we did back then. So I don't know. But all I see is that right now is the best time to join.
Okay. What about you, Marlee?
I would say get in where you fit in. I mean, it literally does not matter where you're at in your life or your career path. Just come on, because we need you. There's a place for you here and there's a purpose for you here. I would definitely still take the same path. I would not ever go away from the military. What I learned there, for sure, it's like the foundation of who I am, but it definitely translates well. So if you're a veteran or in the military right now listening to this podcast, I would say there's a place for you and you have a purpose and we see your value. So
yeah,
get in where you fit in.
And it transfers. That's the most important thing that I can communicate to anybody, right? I mean, you two have different paths from what I took. I came from South Texas, again, small town. A lot of people don't leave the South Texas, but one of the big things I communicate to them, some of the talks that I've gone back and talked to my city is you have, if you have grit, or if you're willing to work hard, you fit in this industry. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what you studied. If you are willing to work hard and be able to learn, that's all you need, right? And you belong, right? People are going to hire you. It just, again, go ahead and...
Yeah, the people that... We want to see your value. We need people in the industry. So people are here to string people along and help people and see your value. So like I said earlier, it's a tight-knit community, and we're all here to help each other out. So maybe if you get your foot in the door in one avenue and you want to change later, there's a community here to help you out with that. But we all want you in the industry, and there's a spot for you here.
So I know I mentioned this last question, but this is the true last question. How would you say, what's the easiest way for people to get started in this industry, right? If they don't know anybody, like, I mean, there's organizations out there that the OCP, Open Compute Project, you have all the data, you have so many different organizations out there, right? I mean, what's the best way to be able to even just get your foot in the door? What would you guys say?
Oh gosh. Well, I'd say if you're exposed to podcasts like this and things like this, don't be afraid to reach out directly to us because like Marlee said plenty of times, we're a really tight-knit industry and community. And I know that anytime we get LinkedIn messages on any of our platforms, we're always like, oh, maybe this doesn't apply to me, but I can send this to someone who this would help with, So don't be afraid to reach out. And while our industry may not seem like the most big and relevant thing right now, just stay along for the ride. And yeah, we're always an open door.
So it sounds like the messaging is don't be afraid. Take that step. Reach out to somebody in the industry. Reach out to one of us. Yeah. Just get started.
Yeah.
Today we have our intern, our marketing intern, Isaac Rivera. You want to go ahead and make a quick introduction?
Yeah. Hi. So my name's Isaac. I'm a marketing intern here at Overwatch, but I'm also in college. I just turned 21 this past October. I've been with Overwatch for almost a year now, or a little bit over a year. I joined about 2 weeks before Shae. So it's coming on a year now. Never thought I'd be in this industry at all. I know the tech industry is pretty daunting to the younger generation, I guess mine, because I didn't come in this industry knowing to code. And when everyone says tech industry, you think of coding, you think of like all like the back end stuff. I'm a marketing major. So I really thought, I have a small role that I thought like to help the industry, because I've nowhere near all that tech stuff, and that was one of like the big things I was scared of. But I met David. That's kind of how I got my foot in the door through mentors in the past. So that's kind of how I got here. Just kind of knowing somebody already, which I've been blessed. But having been in the industry as young as myself, I definitely think I do have some insight for people who don't have that foot in the door yet.
Well, elaborate more on that, right? Because that's one of the big things that we talked about on the first part of this is that we all started somewhere, right? Marlee started off at college, went off to the military. She is in here today by someone she knew. Shae, same thing. Her father's in the industry, someone she knew, be able to take a step from the door. Myself, I interned with Kirk O'Fell, right, who's our CEO. Just again, someone I knew that. Yeah.
Love you.
Some might say that was a blessing in disguise, right? But again, Isaac, I mean, starting off, I started off as an intern in this industry, right? You're starting off as an intern, right? Purely because of who we knew that introduced me to who you were, that you're like, hey man, I just want to be able to do an internship, right? You're now in this industry that you had never heard of. What's your experience so far?
Well, my experience so far, it literally changes like literally week to week. Being as an intern role, like anything the team needs help with, I'm there to help from the marketing perspective. But another thing that, I really find valuable in this changing industry is kind of like the intangibles I came in with. Those are the big things because, coming into the world of tech, not having any tech background, I really leaned on kind of like my interpersonal skills, kind of like my soft skills, you'd say, that I learned through college. Because in the business major, you take your finance classes, marketing classes, kind of like a large plethora of just like build that basic understanding. And, when people were asking things of me, to like complete projects and stuff, I was able to use all the things I learned in school. And I was able to apply it here, which I didn't think I'd be able to. So I've been able to help on a lot of projects, more so marketing, but it's kind of just like furthering the industry itself to give other people opportunities, just like one I have right now.
Well, why don't you elaborate on the soft skills, right? Like one of the biggest things is that, we talked about this in the first part of this podcast was that you don't have to have any type of specific skills to be able to transfer in this industry. You just got to be able to, work hard, be able to learn, right? Do you think that's true? Do you think that you have to be able to have certain skill sets to be able to be successful in this industry?
Oh, definitely. I think some of like the biggest ones that I've really leaned on, like I said, kind of like your interpersonal skills. I feel like that's a really big thing. Regardless of your industry, you hear a lot about like the personality hire, or you hear about, these resumes coming across people's desks. The people that graduate and even the people that don't graduate, they're all capable to do the job here in this industry, but it's kind of like your intangibles that kind of keep you here. So it's definitely the personal skills that I've learned through, like leadership roles, or even just like having a group of friends. I feel like just being able to communicate, especially with an industry with a very like stark contrast of, age ranges and backgrounds. I think the most important skill that I've kind of honed and used, basically in the day to day, is really like your communication skills, your creativity, your ability to problem solve, really. And we problem solve every day. So if you're just able to do that at the most basic skill level, that you're confident in doing, you can definitely carve out a role anywhere in this industry.
And I want to circle back on that part of it, right? Like on the things that you are, that you go into college thinking that you need to be able to learn, or the things that you want, that you expect when you graduate, versus the things that actually are reality, right? When you get outside the industry. But I want to turn to the team and see if they have any questions for you. Like,
Yeah, I would love to know, because we started at the same time. And so DCAC was both of our first like big event. From my perspective, I was running around DCAC taking content with my camera, but a lot of that content was of you, our intern, in the mascot costume for Overwatch and for DCAC. So in the Oscar mascot, which was awesome, that we're the first people in our industry to have a mascot like that. So
but the industry's mascot.
Yeah, it is the industry mascot.
Yeah.
And it's the People's Conference. So you killed it with that. It was amazing. We're definitely laying the groundwork there. But other than being in the mascot costume, was there anything over the past year that surprised you about this industry?
Definitely the culture of the industry. I know a lot of kind of like a big thing that definitely people closer to my age is, is this a culture fit? Is this like a thing that I could see myself being comfortable in, going to work? So definitely the culture of the data center industry, the mission critical industry, is that they're so.
Well, let's break that down. Let's break that down. So you said like, an industry that's fun, that, you can go work for, the tech industry, right? Like, I was with you, right? When I graduated college, all I thought about was the tech industry was, okay, hey, let me go work for the large companies that everybody knows their names, go, work whatever it is, whatever it takes. I don't care what they pay me. I just want to go work for them. I'll work my way up. Like, what was your vision? Like, what did Isaac Rivera want to do when he graduated? Before you
Before
knew
of Overwatch and GCAC.
So definitely going to college, I knew I wanted to be a business major. And, I was kind of basing this off just like the movies I'd watch, from The Wolf of Wall Streets to
I want to
kind
grab
of,
this microphone right now.
Hey, it's not impossible. You can still become the Wolf of Wall Street.
No, I'm way past that. That's the thing. Everyone I feel like my age coming in, kind of like their main goal is, just to be like financially free, to be able to be in an industry where they can live comfortably, especially, from my age range. I feel like social media is such a big part, and the things we see on social media, kind of especially from the youth, they're learning from like gurus, or, they're learning from people kind of like in these high-rise apartments, and, I built my wealth this way, I built my wealth that way. And so I feel like the youth is very torn of, I know I want to make money, and like, I know, especially like the finance and the economy of like America is changing. It definitely influences the youth, I feel, on more of the day-to-day, because, things are getting more expensive. And so definitely like my main focus was being successful. I didn't know what. I guess like I want to do finance, I want to do management. I've always had a love for marketing. So I knew I had those three things, and I wanted to use all those three things in one, but there's not really a major just to use all those things. So I was kind of lost at that point. And then, I found my internship here at Overwatch, not knowing if any of those things would be able to translate. And then, here being a year, in Overwatch now, it literally encapsulates all of that and even more. So it delves into like the engineering, computer science, like, so you don't just have to be on the business side. You can be on, there's so many avenues in this industry, and they all kind of pull things that they need from the youth. And so that was like the big thing of wanting to be successful, wanting to be in an industry where I could definitely grow in. And that was a big thing for me, that I've kind of like noticed the disparities between, large corporate, like Shae said earlier, just a number to the corporation. I feel like my voice definitely is a lot louder here, especially in the tech industry. And a lot of the projects I've been able to help on has been used by the company, or they've been able to draw inspiration from. And just those like little seeds of, feeling like important or feeling heard is what I like really valued here. So that's why I definitely see myself here for the long run.
Well, let's talk about that, right? Like, one of the big things is like what you value, right? I'd love to hear all our team's thoughts on like what the value was when you went into college versus what you think the value is now. Like how you ranked, for example, like when I went to college. To be frank with you guys, I never wanted to go to college. I actually had never considered college. I wanted to just be able to get a job that paid me enough money to be able to just have a living. It was by the sheer luck of having someone that saw something better in me and that was pushing me, hey, apply for college. Like, no, I don't really want to go. And they're like, yep, you should go. And sure enough, I made it out to college. The first time I ever went to the college campus that I attended was actually the day of orientation. I had never looked into the university. I had never even considered what they, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to show up and I'm just going to go to school. I'm only going to make it a year, no problem. Like, I'm going to drop out anyway. Again, I had that mindset. It wasn't until the first semester I was in college that I was like, okay, all right, I don't know what the purpose is, but I know I almost feel like I should be here. I feel like I want to learn something about myself. But my value was money first, a career second, and then, everything else after, right? I love to hear, what are the things that you value? What are the things that you valued before you came to the industry? What are the things that you valued, right, Shae? You went to the military not to make money, but you went to make a difference,
Yeah.
right? How important was that outside the military when you were looking for a industry that had the same type of mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier. Like I said, I was only in the military for 5 years. Relatively young. I was 22 when I got out, and I thought I would have no problem transitioning. And I found myself having a really hard time not being around my brothers and sisters that I was around every single day and thinking like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll have a career change. But that was my whole personality, because in boot camp, they break you down and they rebuild you as a construct of what they want, and it's for a reason. But you get out and you don't have anybody breaking you back down and rebuilding you as a civilian, so you have to break yourself down. And that's really where I found my grit, is like, okay, I don't, this is not where I want to be, and I need to find a new purpose. And I found that in the industry and with the people that I work with. I mean, you are all the people I work with, and I love you guys. So it's like, it's great to have an industry that needs you and people that want you and love you and want to work with you and collaborate with you and find value in you regardless of where you come from.
So Shae, touching on that, like, what was the things that you valued before you stepped into college, right? Your first time in college, freshman year, what were the things that you valued initially going in versus what coming into this industry?
Yeah, well, when you first get into college, like I touched on before, it's like you think that you have figured out the rest of your life. You've made that decision when you're 17, 18. You're like, okay, picked my major. I know exactly how the rest of my life is going to look, and that's it. Within my first 2 years, I had switched majors, and by the end of it, I was, I had my degree in communications, but I wasn't really sure where it was going to go. But I knew, okay, you graduate, and then your next priority is to make money in a decent job for a reputable company. So that doesn't really tie much into my values or anything, but I knew that that's the goals that I'm striving for, is good pay, good company, good structure of job, And I did that. I did that for 3 years within 2 different corporate jobs, and I was miserable. And I realized, okay, I'm making the money, I'm checking the things off the list, and everything looks good on paper, but I'm miserable and I'm not feeling valued at all. I'm not collaborating at all. So I thought I knew what my values and my goals were coming out of college. And then when I lived it out and experienced it, I was like, maybe not. I don't feel like that motivation to go in every day and do the work. But then you transition to an industry or a company where you are valued and you are collaborating. And then at the end of the day, it's like, I want my ideas and my creativity to be valued and appreciated. And I never experienced that. I was prioritizing monetary value and a perspective or how I was perceived over how I was valued. Yeah. And so I feel like after the few years of experience that I've had, I've able to reframe my purpose around being valued and helping out something bigger than myself, but knowing that I'm valued while doing it at the same time.
Yeah, no, I want to circle around that, talk about the importance of leadership, right? Being able to be heard is what I'm hearing is being heard, be able to have a voice, right? Isaac, you've been in college right now. You're in your senior year of college right now at Baylor University, right? What's your experience been on what are the students right now at the university value? What is their value? What do they value, right? Coming outside of the college, right? Versus what you've experienced now.
Well, one thing I can say about value kind of in the university standpoint of the environment that everyone's in right now, it's kind of just valuing security for themselves once they graduate. I'm staring down the barrel of graduation a year from now, and I definitely have, I've definitely found my values. Overwatch in this industry has helped me find my values for what I want in a career. But I think a lot of the values are just rooted in financial security, family security, kind of like where you want to end up after college. Baylor's in Waco, and it's a small city. I grew up in a small city. David, you grew up in a town just a couple minutes away. So it's just kind of like, valuing the bigger picture. Definitely like where we're from, we're not used to these big cities and, tech jobs. And so it was kind of like switching my values from, honest work, day's labor. I come from a long line of blue collar jobs and military jobs. So a lot of like my original values they're kind of rooted in, you go to work, you take your lunch pail, you you do your work, you go back home, and that's it. That's kind of where my values started. And then, I got to the college landscape and I was surrounded by a multitude of different people, who were smarter than me, or were more technical than me. And, they found their value in, large finance jobs, or, the sales role is becoming a lot more popular now. So I was able to take those values and kind of put them to my old ones. And, now I have a greater outlook of, the world landscape and, where I'm going to end up. I knew I didn't want to do like the normal stuff that everyone's doing. Yeah. I wanted to be in an industry where it's, forward thinking, kind of a place to be creative, a place where you could really forward something. And that's kind of like where I find myself now, compared to the people who are stuck on kind of like the corporate vision of, being complacent, of, kind of just doing that for the rest of your life. And that, not to downplay what they do, but just kind of like be a part of an industry that's changing the world, really. You spoke on the fifth industrial revolution, and it's a lot of it's something that the youth doesn't really know, but definitely like my age range, being part of a pandemic, now we're living through the fifth industrial revolution. Revolutions and history, revolutions and stuff you just kind of like read about in books that you learn in history. We learned through the rise of like steel, oil, gas, building railroads, and especially in Texas, the oil and gas industry is so big. And you see all the wealth that comes, from that industry, and the generational wealth that is built and it's still in today. So I want to, like, because I'm living through it, I want to be part of it now. Like, like when I'm really involved in like stocks and finance and crypto, and there's just a lot of the days I look back reading news articles like, oh, this stock or this crypto has hit an all-time high, and then I just think about, dang, if I was in middle school and I just got Robinhood and put like $1 into the share, I'd be living pretty well. But that time's passed. But that's the thing. Like, we're in the present now of literally another industry revolution, something that's gonna like touch many lives and is gonna put food on the table for a lot of families. And that's the thing that I want to be a part of. And I was able to get onto it early, sitting here today. So that's definitely something that I want to be an ambassador of.
Yeah.
And definitely be a part of and help other people kind of my age range literally be a part of history, because this is only going to grow. And I know me and Dave, we spoke about like, our future goals. And I remember bringing up, there's the whole cookie and the crumbs. And I told you, like, I'm literally fine just getting crumbs, because the crumbs it'll make you very successful.
Yeah. I would literally like wrap it up to say exactly like that. Like just getting your foot in the door in this industry will lead to something greater. So if you can, like I said, to quote, get in where you fit in, you'll find a purpose here and you will be valued. So it doesn't matter if you're an intern in college, like you were when you started and now you're all our boss, or an intern, or freaking a golden girl at Mizzou, or in the Navy. It doesn't matter. Like, there's a place for you. We see your value. We want you here. So that's the main purpose of this podcast, to wrap it all up, is get in where you fit in. Come on. We want you. We need you. We see your value, and we'll compensate you accordingly. So let's go.
One of the things I would say is I've always said I'd rather have a piece of the pie than no pie at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, but to that extent though, right? Like, this industry is so ever evolving that you have so much great talent. We're trying to adopt or be able to bring into this industry that, to me, yes, I'm your boss right now, but to me, I've always been, that mindset is my only goal in life is to be able to make sure that you guys are learning everything I learned in a short period of time, half the time, to where you're my boss one day, right? Isaac, you should be striving to be their boss one day, right? Like, it's so fast paced that it's all a matter of who's willing to learn, who's willing to work the hardest, right? Where you may be all our bosses one day, right? That's how fast this industry is evolving, that it doesn't matter what you know. It partially matters who you know, but more importantly, how hard you're willing to work.
Yeah.
right?
And the glass ceiling's already broken.
Yeah.
Like there's no, I would never treat you as if, you know, you have to get past me to get where you want to go. It's like, I want to give you every single thing I know so you can get to where I am, like David said, faster than me. So you very well, maybe my boss one day, but it's like, I'm not going to hold you back. I want that for you. And that's how the whole industry is. Like we said earlier, is everybody's willing to help each other out, whether it's in your company or in your industry, your network. It doesn't matter. We all want you here. So,
But touching on that though, like as women, you know, one of the big things that we do in general, right? We're trying to bring more women to the industry. Like, how do you feel as women? Do you feel, you know, like how, like, I guess, what would you communicate to other women that are looking to join this industry that may see it from outside looking in? Like, okay, hey, there's not many women in the industry. There are not many roles that women could fill. What would you say to them?
Yeah, no matter what corporate sector you go in, you're going to be facing those issues of being inequality. Like, no matter where you go, I worked in logistics and for a third-party private logistics company, and I had that inequality there. I went to another corporate sector where every director was a male and every person on their team was a female, and that's how it always went. So coming into this industry, I feel like I've never been more welcomed with open arms and actually like disregarded of the fact of gender. Like, nobody's considering that right now. We're all just like, we need people. We need all hands on deck.
Doesn't matter who you are
for the
or
greater
what you
good.
are, yeah.
Whereas like in other situations, it may be a hierarchical thing and it's more like patriarchal issues, I guess. There's deeper issues, obviously, with like women not feeling as welcomed, but I would say the data center industry is not somewhere that you would face those issues.
yeah, and we have a lot of, I mean, not to say you won't face those issues. I've only worked in Overwatch as a data center industry. I don't face those issues, but we're all willing to help each other out. I mean, we have WIMCO and all these great opportunities to string women along to get us into the industry. It's no secret that if you walk into a data center event, you might be the woman standing in the room, but we're all trying to get more women there. We're all trying to help the underrepresented groups get into the industry because it doesn't have anything to do with that. We want everyone. Like I said, like we've been saying this entire podcast, it literally doesn't matter the background or who you are or the, you know, just come on because we need you. And as long as you have drive and grit, and you'll make it.
Well, so to that extent, right, just to make sure I'm communicating correctly, right, like, do you feel like there's any glass ceiling to what you can achieve, right? I you know, in terms of being a woman, being someone that doesn't know anything about the industry, right? When I first came to the industry, personally, I was afraid to be able to go to events, right? Because I felt like I had to be someone that knew, that was super technical. I felt like I had to, you know a lot about the industry. And what I realized, it took me a couple of years, but what I realized was, man, the more honest I am with people in this industry that, hey, I don't really know it all, or I'm not X, Y, and Z. I just want to learn. That's all I care about. And I care about learning. But if I can do business with you, I'm going to make the biggest, like, I'm going to try my hardest to make sure that I honor everything I tell you, right? People gave me that was the door to more opportunities, right? When I was honest with myself, honest with the partners I worked with. How do you guys feel about that? Like, do you feel like the industry has open doors to be able to, you know, do anything you want to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, we have a 32-year-old female COO, for God's sake. I mean, and she's one of the best leaders I've personally met in my career, in my life. I mean,
amazing.
she holds leadership meetings, you know, every Tuesday that we all take part of, and she teaches us really how to communicate. And communication, like we touched on earlier, can literally start and end wars. Like, you just miscommunication can just take somebody off, or you never know where it's going to go. And to have, you know, somebody as great as Kirk Feld, you know, have a COO as awesome and communicative and empathetic as Carly Walden is, like, personally, she's taught me a lot on how to just communicate.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, I mean, I think the glass ceiling has been broken, and you just need to come on, because there's definitely women out there that want you, will bring you along, and there's no glass ceiling to break. You just get our phone number and text us, and we'll bring you along, no doubt.
What about you, Shae?
I'd say the ladies that came before us in this industry already broke the glass ceiling for us.
Yeah.
The ladies like Carrie and Carly, all those ladies, they've already laid the groundwork and
Shout out to
gotten
Carrie
over
Guts.
They've already done that for us. Carrie wrote her book, got us all in the industry, helped us out there. But we have so many mentors just within the industry. And my first experience, like I touched on, was at DCAC. And there was tens of other panels. I won't say hundreds, but tens of other panels of just different males that are prevalent in the industry, but I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then there's this woman-focused panel, and it's Carly and it's Liz Cruz, and it's all these amazing women in our industry. And I'm like, whoa. And out of that, I feel like that probably made the greatest impact. And not that we have to put such a spotlight on it all the time, but these ladies are laying the groundwork, so you can't like disregard that at the end of the day just because
representation matters.
Representation is key.
Well, to touch on that though, like that almost ties back to one of the important things that you probably do have to have, or you have to be willing to be able to learn, is communication, right? I mean, one of the things you touched on in the military is one of the big things that you measure your success is on mortality, right? Where we measure our success in the data center industry is on downtime. Right. Same thing, Shae, like you're a communication major. That all you know how to do is communicate. Right. So, I mean, that's an important factor to be able to grow is communication. What you're doing every day, what you're forward thinking. How would you guys say, like, Isaac, I mean, you're in our industry now, right now. Tell us about what you think, what success looks like, in our industry, or what skill sets need to transfer.
Well, first of all, to answer the success in the industry question, I think it's hard to measure success, kind of like on the day-to-day scale. But the one thing that I do find major success in is how connected our success is to kind of the whole world. Like we spoke on, if data centers were to go down one day, like that's the thing, like it affects everybody. So if I were to like measure success in this industry, it would just literally be like the day-to-day work that we put in with all these huge companies, like David said, the Googles, TikTok. Literally, you use it for everything.
Yeah.
So just the success would be just being able to keep those things running literally every second of the day.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of important things that we should talk about. Like, what I realized is there's certain things that matter to each of us that can communicate. You being in the military industry, you being in the college, you being currently in college, right? There's so many different things that matter to us based off our generations. But what we can all agree on is that you don't have to have. The only thing you have to be willing to do is be able to work hard and be able to willing to learn. Can we not agree on that?
Adapt.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Isaac, do you not agree?
Yeah, no, just literally just being a part of something bigger than yourself, that you could be a part of from literally, like, I'm 21. I got this internship when I was 20. And just being that such young of an age and such a huge industry that means a lot to everybody. Just kind of like being a part of that is what I would say.
Could we not agree? And again, I'd love to hear y'all's opinions on, is there any factors that limit you, whether it's age, sex, like, ethnicity? Like, I personally feel like there isn't. Like, it's just a matter of getting started. What do y'all think?
It's definitely like how open you can get your mind to be, because you're not going to come in here knowing everything. So it's just kind of like how open your mind is and how willing you are to apply things that you already know, because you have this job, because you know of those things. That's why you're qualified to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't
matter your age, doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter anything. If you've got a phone in your hand, or you're sending an email or on a computer, we could use you in this industry.
Last thing I'd say, Isaac, so I've heard your background, Shae, Marlee, so let's go around the horn, right? For those that grew up in a small town like you did, that didn't know what they want to do, what would you communicate to them to be able to be like, hey man, this is why you should join the industry? And I want to hear Shae's, and I want to hear Marlee's thoughts.
Literally, be okay stepping out of your comfort zone, especially from being a small town, and your mind can only go so far as what you limit it to. Being from a small town, like, it's obviously very limited. The jobs you see is probably what your parents have worked, what your families have worked, but it's literally on you. Like, how expansive do you want your mind to be, and for like you personally, like, even I know, like, going back to those roles just maybe seems so comfortable, and not wanting to, like, it may seem daunting, just like being in the tech industry, but it shouldn't, because wherever you put yourself is that's the first step. So it's putting yourself in this position, and then you'll be able to, call this place your home. It'll literally take you to anywhere. I know DCAC is expanding to Europe, and now I have like thoughts in my head of like, wow, this like exists in Europe. This exists in every major city in the U.S. So it's literally like where you want to take yourself. Kind of just using this industry as your vessel to take you there.
I would say if you want to join this industry, be ready to be willing to learn and to learn new things and maybe wear different hats every day. But regardless, you're going to learn new things and grow like you've never grown before.
Yeah, Marlee, what would you tell the military community, whether you're enlisted or a veteran right now? Any words of advice before we wrap up?
There's an opportunity for you here and a purpose and a group that needs you. And there's a veteran company, Overwatch, that wants you 100%. And so just, come in, get your foot in the door. You'll have a purpose and you'll feel valued here.